We should be live here any second.
I think it's weird today. I don't know.
Okay, we're live. Torey Eisenman with Benchmark Real Estate Group, and we are with Total Health today. And we're going to talk a little bit today about how do you stay emotionally connected in a disconnected world. You know, we're physically not together right now, and sometimes that makes it a little bit difficult to stay emotionally connected. And I don't think that that's necessarily easy for everybody. So who wants to kind of start to chat and talk about, you know, how you feel that people can stay connected and give some of that advice?
Well, I'll introduce the team really quick, just because we got a new guest here today, this afternoon, Kobe Montemayor, who is one of our acupuncture physicians here. Myself, Tony, the wellness coordinator, John Steitler, one of our counselors and the owner, and then DJ Spigner, our counselor. So I'll let one of you guys take the lead on that question.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. Give me just a moment. So, as you mentioned, it's we're all facing some very uncertain times right now, and all of us are having to kind of be flexible and get creative about the ways that we stay connected with the people in our lives, our friends, family, coworkers, things like that. And so one of the methods that we definitely recommend for people is the one we're using right now, to use technology and to use things like Zoom or Facebook Live, or even more personal connections through things like Google or other social media outlets that have video chat abilities. You're able to connect with people that are far away. So finding ways to keep those same kind of traditions, the same kind of routines that you had with friends and family from a distance is actually a lot easier than most people realize. It can seem kind of intimidating, kind of daunting, but especially now with everything going on, most of those social media outlets and websites have really simple guides for people to get connected, to start using their software, their programs, so that they don't have to feel so isolated. They don't have to feel so lonely and start to maybe struggle with some depression or anxiety that could come along with that. So that's one of the major ways right now that people are staying connected.
I started a group a few weeks ago, and I just invited some of my past clients, my friends, my sphere, and we meet every week just to chat, just like this. And it's not the same as being in person, and we do it in the morning, so we're not having alcohol. Not that alcohol is bad, but I think that right now we need balance, right? I think it's too easy to go and find some sort of escape mechanism because that's the easy thing to do. But I think this is a good platform. But what about people that maybe they don't have Zoom and they don't have that capacity? What do you suggest they do? Or they're living alone? So I had a friend that was home by himself for about 10 days while his family was in another state, and he was really having an issue. And I have another friend that he's living by himself, and he usually travels, I would say, probably 45 weeks out of the year. And he's here locally without his family and completely isolated. So how do those people get connected if they're not in business or they don't have a Zoom account per se?
Yeah, so I think Tony's talking there, but his microphone is muted. Tony, did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. I just think that, I live alone, so it is challenging. And until this week, I was in the office alone too. So I did have the fortunate ability to get out and go to the office, for our office, we are a bit essential. And at the same time, it was really challenging. Luckily, again, I do have Zoom. What I found myself doing that was really helpful during the period when I didn't see anybody on my team or really in person was I would go to parks. And even if I didn't feel comfortable outside walking around people, I would just sit in my car. So, and maybe just take a quick drive, to the store. Maybe I know people don't really need to be on the road moving around, but if you're going to take a trip to the store, maybe stop and park somewhere nice and quiet where you can relax and just kind of take in the scenery. That's an idea. And then I did a lot of phone calling. I just had an Army buddy last night reached out to me. I haven't talked to him in a few months, and he kept me up past 1 o'clock last night because we were just catching up, talking about his family and what's going on. So reaching out to those people you haven't contacted, and you know that you want to and have wanted to, and a phone call is just as good as a video session. Nothing's going to replace being in person. but it is something to help make that connection verbally, vocally, you know, to hear it and to have a conversation, as opposed to, I don't think just texting is going to get it in this time with what we're dealing with. It needs to be some form of visual or verbal and audible communication. I think that would help.
And I think talking to other people is helpful. I see Jason Shelfers on this call with us, and he and his wife have a nonprofit. And one of the things he talked about on a call we were on earlier was that routine, right? This is an easy time to get out of that routine. And I think as humans, if we're not getting results or feel as though we're moving forward, I think emotion is, that's all tied to motion, right? If we're not moving forward and having motion, then that's the easy way for us to go backwards or to feel depressed. What about exercise?
Yeah, I think that's obviously a good thing. We want to make sure we're staying connected to ourselves also, you know, as well as with other people, but staying connected just to be emotionally present with ourselves. So it might be a good time for some journaling and some work like that. But I think from the physical side, obviously we know getting some kind of a routine is going to be really important, and getting some physical exercise is really critical, especially during this time where there's exasperated stress. But keep in mind, something I said last week, and I'll say it again, is this is a time for grace. If there's one word that you could take away from this, would be grace. It's a time to be gracious with ourselves, gracious with other people that we're in relationship with, we're sharing a home with, maybe we're quarantined with. But there's a lot of pressure out there of, you know, hey, we should go out and we should run a mile and we should learn a new language and we should do all these things. And while some people may be there, keep in mind that this is a loss. We've all lost some freedom. We've lost some finances. We've lost routine. We've lost schedule. So whenever there's loss, there's grief. And we're going through the different stages of grief. So it's okay to be really gracious with yourself if you don't really feel like exercise. It doesn't mean you just don't do it. It just means, okay, one person may be able to run a mile or do 100 push-ups. You might be able to walk to the mailbox and back. You know, you might be able to take a walk around the block, but do what works for you. I know Covin's one of our physicians, and she probably has more to say just about the importance of movement and what it does for your immune system.
Yeah, I'm gonna unmute. But you know, before I want to just ask, and you might address this, Covin, but what about the guilt? So for the A-type personalities that are used to going, right? We feel like we need to be producing, and then we're sitting on the couch watching Ozark and eating Swiss Miss cake rolls. Right? There's a sense of guilt associated with that.
I'll tell you one thing that I thought just before COVID starts, you know, the exercise-wise, I don't know if people know, like, you can get a lot of free stuff if you have like Amazon Prime. Even Spectrum has exercise classes for free. I've got on YouTube and just started looking up some like quick exercise programs, like core stuff, and they have real quick 10, 20-minute things you can do. And what I kind of told myself was, for every hour of TV I watch, I have to get up and move around. And again, with the grace, like John said, I might not go walking for a mile, but I'm going to get up and do something around the house or in between movies or something. It's like, if I'm going to be, you know, a slouch, because I mean, that's what we're doing right now. Hey, I'm okay with it. That's where I'm at. I can't do a lot of the things I wanted to do before. So while I'm going to enjoy what I can, I'm going to try to have as much movement as possible. So, and again, if I don't get up in between those movies, it's right now, you know, again, the grace and forgive and just keep it moving. If we concentrate too much on what we can't do right now, it's going to draw us deeper into that guilt, depression, and all the anxiety and things that come up.
I'll make one other comment just on the guilt. As I was referring to the stages of grief, guilt is one of the stages of grief is bargaining. You may have heard that term, but guilt is bargaining's companion. They go together. So in that bargaining stage of the grieving process, we're asking, if only, and why can't I do this, and what would, you know, all the what if and if only questions. Well, guilt is often, you know, that companion. So just recognizing that it's normal. It's common. You're not unusual. If you're feeling guilty, you're feeling unmotivated, that's a normal response to grief. So again, that's where some extra grace comes in. Covin, did you have some more comments on that?
We want you to talk now.
I do. You guys can hear me okay?
Yeah. Hey, Kobe.
Okay, awesome. So a couple thoughts popped in my head as you guys were talking. One of which is, specifically as we relate to grief, we hold all emotions in our body, and we hold different emotions in kind of different spaces in our body. And so right now, each of us are probably experiencing different emotions, and we might be holding it different places. Oftentimes, we see people hold stress, maybe in their shoulders, or maybe they have neck tension, or even jaw pain. I have a lot of clients who are high stress people who feel like they can't speak as much, so they find themselves clenching their jaws a lot. But specifically for grief, we often find some sort of chest pain, upper back pain, maybe some pain that's radiating down to the hands. And so it's really important. Exercise is really important because we need to be engaging in our body. And so, yes, there's a plethora of reasons that exercise is good for us. But one of the main reasons is it just kind of connects our mind with our body. And right now, it can be really, especially as we're dealing with everything that's going on, it can be really easy to kind of disconnect mentally, emotionally, and physically. And what that does is it puts each of those different systems, it puts extra weight on them. So the mental side of things is going to seem heavier. The physical side of things are going to seem more intense as well. We might see more cravings towards, carbs and sweets and things like that, or comfort foods that kind of make us feel more full inside emotionally. And that's those cravings are your body's way of trying to connect you emotionally and physically. And so something simple like getting up and going for a walk, or some stretching, or different exercises like that, even if it's not 100 push-ups, or I went and ran 5 miles today, even if it's just maybe a more mild form of movement, it's still so helpful in connecting the mind, the body, and the heart all together, which is really, really what we need to be doing right now. And in an endeavor to offer ourselves more grace, we can maybe just start our day or end our day with different kind of simple exercises, like going and walking, kind of creating a habit of, okay, at this time every day, I go walk to my mailbox. I'm going to walk around the neighborhood once. And the nice thing about walking outside is you can respect social distancing while also maybe seeing some neighbors and maybe waving and chatting with them from across the road.
So you talked about mind, body, and heart. And I want to kind of emphasize the heart piece, because when people are stressed, I know I personally close down, right? And it doesn't matter if I'm with my family, it doesn't matter if I'm out in public. Yeah, out in public, I'm probably going to be more open with people, because when I come home, that's my safe place, which I honestly believe should be the opposite, right? We should be nicer in our safe place than we are out in public. But, even this weekend, so I decided, okay, I get cranky when I'm isolated. I'm cleaning my whole house, right? I'm making everybody crazy. And I literally have 3 of those mops that put hot water down and suck water up, and not one of them will work. Everything broke. Nothing was working. I was getting more and more irritable. My husband would say something and I'm just yelling at him just for speaking. So when you feel like you're in that place of that frustration, how do you reel back in that place of love and not feeling so much anxiousness?
Well, I'll jump in. I think Koven can probably continue to answer, because I think what you said was really important. It's making that connection to your mind, body, spirit. Like we have to keep the idea that they're all together. We can't focus on one or the other. We really have to pay attention to each part and give as much or as little as we can right now. Koven?
Yeah. So I think, of course, to validate what Tony said is for sure. I think doing like in those moments, because just like pain is a signal for your body that something's missing in your body, I think the emotional like irritation is equally a signal of something's missing. And so I'd encourage just kind of, taking a step back, whether it's going and finding a quiet space, or maybe stepping outside to kind of think through, why you're responding that way, and then coming back in and after you've reflected and doing that. I think there's a couple great, I know emotional freedom techniques can be really good at kind of calming our mind in the moment so that we can kind of re-engage more kindly, can be really helpful. And then I was also reading an article on just different kind of like holds that people can have on themselves. And it kind of seems weird. When I was reading the article, I was like, this is very odd, and I needed visuals to kind of fully understand it. But it's just kind of a way of holding yourself in place. And so like, something so simple as giving yourself a hug, again, it seems kind of silly to kind of talk about, but in those moments, it's kind of a self-soothing technique. And I'm sure some of the counselors can probably talk about it a little more, but it's tremendously relaxing. And it's kind of an opportunity for you to show yourself some love and some grace in that moment, when you can kind of go back and maybe interact with the people in your space a little differently.
And I think that's a great suggestion because, you know, I think that people that have a lot more weight on their shoulders than I do maybe can't even see through that frustration level. I went out and bought sunflowers this week, huge, big, 10 sunflowers. And I'm like, oh, they make me happy. Look, they're pretty. They feel happy. Everything's happy about them. Now I'm like, okay, where can I go find people that have sunflowers that I can go deliver sunflowers to so that they can feel happy too, if they're not allergic to them. But I think that, you know, maybe share a couple techniques. If you guys want to share a couple techniques of something that somebody can do, you know, whether it's stretching, it's yoga, it's journaling, how do they get themselves to do that? Because we can talk about doing it, but the execution to me is the difficult part because we know we need to do it, but we feel so overwhelmed that we feel frozen.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I know.
I
Go ahead, DJ.
Oh, yeah, I could speak on that briefly. And I think you all made a very good point there that those techniques and these types of relaxation and anti-anxiety techniques are very helpful, while finding the time for them can be difficult. And we might think right now that, oh, we have all this time, right? It's not a problem. We have nothing but time. A lot of people do. But the issue there is, I think, as you brought up, that if you're in home and you're with family or you're with a spouse or a partner and you're having that kind of interaction on a daily basis, if you needed to take that time for yourself to step away to practice one of those techniques, the other people in the house might not really understand what the need was or what you were doing. They might take that as you're trying to avoid an important conversation. You're trying to get out of a conflict that they feel is important, that needs to be discussed. So to be really clear about asking for what you need in that moment and being able to say, I need this time and this is the reason why. And when we're finished with that, I plan to come back and we can resume that conversation. We can pick it up where we left off. But as far as specific techniques, there are a couple that I've definitely encouraged people to try that are really easy to use and really easy to learn about online if they take the time just to search for them. One of them is called progressive muscle relaxation. And it's actually kind of like a physical meditation, if you will. It's a way to kind of tense the muscles in the body in different muscle groups. There's a guide you can follow, very easy to find through Google if you just search for progressive muscle relaxation. And it goes through the body through different muscle groups. It has you tense the muscle groups and then it has you slowly relax the muscle groups. And you might even visualize maybe the word relax or the sound of speaking relax, or say the word to yourself as you're doing that. And as Coven mentioned, which I think is very, very important, our stress and our emotions are stored in the body, right? And so the idea behind progressive muscle relaxation is that by relieving the physical tension, the muscle tension that comes from those emotions and that stress, it will relieve the emotions and it will relieve the stress. The other that I would definitely encourage people to try is guided meditation. Meditation is something that lots of people know about and they've tried, and most people have struggled with it because it's really difficult to do, especially the traditional kind of meditation that we hear about, you know, clear your mind, think of nothing, right? Okay, that's very hard to do. Show me someone that can do that has no training that's been done. So the guided meditation is a lot easier for people to follow. If you go onto YouTube and you type in guided meditation, and basically any problem or struggle, depression, insomnia, anxiety, whatever it is you're dealing with, you'll be able to find guided meditations that are specifically for that problem. Basically, if you have some headphones and you have a room where it's quiet and there's not other people around, you can get away from everyone for a little while, sit down, give yourself 10, 15 minutes to listen to that guided meditation and just follow along with what they are suggesting and what they're telling you to visualize. And I think people would be surprised at the benefits they could get from doing those two things if they make the time for it, as you said.
So, I think a lot of people are afraid of that quiet time because, I don't have this, but years ago, my mind would race and I couldn't ever quiet my mind. And it took me 8 years of training to learn to shift that. So what do you do in that instance where you want to do this meditation, but your mind's just, I don't have money. I can't feed my kids. How am I going to make my next payment? Am I going to have a job again? What techniques can they use to even get to that meditation phase?
Well, I can tell you that I started doing some meditation before, and like DJ said, I hated the idea of like empty your mind. Like what? Like really had a hard time doing that. So the guided meditation did help me. But what I think, and Coven probably could speak to this as well, is maybe anybody on the team actually is intention. Like I was thinking this morning, like when I like now, I used to get up and I'd rush to get in the shower and get ready and get for work and kind of running around like, oh my gosh. And now I've taken a lot more time. So while I could be thinking about, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have a job next week, or oh my God, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. What I try to do is I'm in the shower and I'm just going to take time to make sure I'm focusing on my body and what I'm doing. So that automatically turns off the other thoughts. So when we're watching a TV show or sharing time with our friend or talking on the phone, basically what I learned about meditation isn't saying don't think about anything. It's calling to mind what you're doing in that present moment. I'm talking to Coven. We're having a good conversation. While she's speaking, I don't want to run off and think about all the horrible things that are happening because I'm not now present in the conversation with her. But if I keep reminding myself, if it's a visual, it's easy. But if I'm on the phone, it's like, hey, I'm talking with my friend Coven. This is fun. And just kind of keep your mind focused on whatever activity or thing you're doing in that moment. And it may seem really insane to focus on washing dishes or folding laundry, but it kind of shuts the brain down and it doesn't allow it to think of those other things. It's in the moment, what am I doing? Because the reality is the only time we have is the moment that we're in. We can think about the future. We can think about what happened. And in this instance right now, it's only going to add stress to our lives. It really is for pretty much everybody. So a helpful way to do sort of an all-day meditation is just try to be present in the moment and focus on what you're doing and keep refocusing on what you're doing. It won't allow those other messages to come in when our critics start saying, okay, worry, freak out, anxiety.
I actually love that idea because if you think about it, just think about washing dishes, how the soap kind of interacts with the dirt on the dishes. I do some crazy thinking, but if you really start thinking about how does life work, like our cell phones are actually giving us contact either by picture or audio, and we're able to talk to people around the world. I mean, I sit back many instances and I'm like, wow, like how does that really work? And of course, I have a 17-year-old that tells me I'm an idiot because I don't understand how all that stuff works. I'm like, okay, break it down to the detail. But I think if we really do start thinking about the intricacies of every aspect of life, can we really fall into that negativity?
I just wanted to speak real quickly and say that I noticed that Jason had made a comment there about meditation, and he had talked about mindfulness. And as Tony was talking about his approach to meditation and the way that he's very intentional, he focuses on the present moment and what he's doing in that moment, very much describing mindfulness. So I think Jason brought up a really good point there. And I think for anybody that's watching this or sees this and is looking for, how do I start doing what Tony's suggesting? How do I figure out how to do this? How do I learn about it? Mindfulness would be a great thing to learn more about.
And I think everybody should go to Jason Shelfer's Facebook page and watch him and his wife doing, I don't know if it's even meditation with fruits and closing their eyes and smelling. And
yeah.
Quite comical what they're doing, but.
And that's the thing, we're moving so quickly. We don't even, are we really enjoying that steak, before this started? We just get through our day, we're running around getting stuff done. It's like, how are we enjoying the flavors? And like you said, the intricacies of everything we're eating and doing. I think it's helpful.
Torey, you mentioned like some of the frustration that we might have, either being irritated with people we're quarantined with, or just frustrations in life. And I think anything on that, called the anger spectrum, whether that's irritation, frustration, downright angry, all the way up to pissed off, anything on that spectrum. It's anger, and anger is almost always a secondary emotion. So if you play it in slow motion, sometimes, that's one of the first steps that I do. If I'm starting to feel irritated or just annoyed, I stop and think, okay, what is the emotion before the anger? So if my kid runs in the street, I'm angry, I'm like, why are you running in the street? You good? But if I play in slow motion, okay, I was really scared before I was angry. Or, if somebody punches me, I'm angry, but if I play in slow motion, there's an ouch. I was hurt. There's an ouch before the damage, So we want to think through, what is that primary feeling? And that'll give us insight into what the real need is, because it's hard to really deal with anger. We use that term a lot, manage anger. I don't really like the term, even though we call it that same thing here. But anger is an emotion. So if we get to the underlying feeling, we can do something about being hurt or being scared. If we're scared, what do we need? We need that comfort. Maybe go back to what Coven said, and maybe that self-comforting with a hug, or calling a friend and letting them know. But if I went to somebody and I said, I'm scared, you're more likely to get a softer response. Somebody's going to move towards you. If you say, I'm angry, it typically back up. So if you can get to the underlying feeling, that may be just a first step in trying to identify what is the need, and then you can take appropriate actions to getting that need met. And I do want to, before we move on, just mention that if anybody is struggling deeper in any one of these issues, whether that's some of the things, whether it's the anger issue or just having a hard time with the meditation or connectedness or struggling relationally, our whole team here is completely willing to do free consultations for anybody. So if anybody wants to reach us, they can just Google us at Total Health Guidance, or they can call us. Tony's information is up on the back of the screen. And we'd be more than happy to set up a free consultation, whether that's with a counselor, a therapist, whether that's with one of our physicians to talk about immunity or health-related concerns. We all want to be here as a resource.
Well, and I think it's important too. So anything new feels funny, right? It feels like we shouldn't do it, or we're uncomfortable. And I don't think we can grow unless we're uncomfortable, no matter what we're doing in life. But I was taking a walk the other day, and my husband, our family's Tony Robbins followers, but there was a person walking down our street, and they had on headphones, and they were just jamming and dancing and throwing their arms in the air. And my husband's like, okay, he's a Tony Robbins graduate. And I started laughing. I was like, you know what? If more of us would do that, we're going to bring humor to other people, because now it's not oh, that person was strange. It was thank you for making me laugh, right? So how do we bring more humor? Because even with me, when all 3 of my machines broke this weekend, I was like, God's protecting me from having to clean, because I really don't like to do it anyway, and my clean. So how do you transition that anger into laughter, or finding more fun with ourselves and being able to bring humor? Because I think we have to be less serious right now.
I would put that to Coven, because Coven is our team prankster, and she's really good, and she's very joyful and fun. So I would like Coven to answer that. I think that'd be a good idea.
Wow. Well, I'm glad I'm the team prankster. The joker. I think you're right. I think you're spot on. I love laughter a lot. I love the quote, laughter is good medicine, and I believe it fully. And there's a lot of moments when laughing is not easy. And I think stress amplifies that for sure. And so, and I also think, we all find humor in different things. So, if somebody's looking to just laugh more, finding a comedy special that they like, or even just a goofy show or something like that. It kind of varies based on each of us. But I think on a more generalized scale, just kind of getting yourself, like talking yourself through whatever's stressful, and just kind of thinking, like taking a step back and thinking, what is the funny parts about this? What are the funny parts about this? And then I think also giving yourself the opportunity to laugh, which kind of sounds weird. But we often, we don't find laughing. One of the beautiful things about kids is they laugh about everything. Like their usual response, potentially an inappropriate response, is laughter. And so maybe you're not around kids, because kids, of course, bring that out in all of us, which is the wonder of kids. But, just kind of go to that space in yourself, because we all have that kind of laughing space where, before our filter kicks in and says, don't laugh, because people might think this isn't an appropriate time to laugh. Just kind of like break that down a little bit and, just try and reset the things that you're looking at in more of a light-hearted sort of sense. That will certainly help you. But the joy of community, even though we're kind of separated and right now, is when one of us is able to do that, we can inspire others to laugh. And by doing that, you're providing good medicine for the people around you. And so, there are days probably when you won't want to be the initiator of laughter in your life. And it might be really hard for you to be the initiator of joy. But, maybe find someone else or find another source that brings you joy and laughter and things like that. Reach out to your family, reach out to your friends or your friend group or the group chat and just put something funny. Watch cat videos, it's different for all of us, but there's so many ways that, having that outlet for laughter is so good. And then I have a mentor of mine. She inspires me tremendously. And one of our first interactions together was during my clinical internship. And there was a room full of students, and we were all super stressed because school is hard and clinic is harder. And she just started laughing out of nowhere, just burst into laughter. And at first, all of us are kind of just looking at her and wondering, what the heck is she doing? And then over a few, moments, her laugh became so contagious, I started laughing because I just thought it was ridiculous. And then slowly the entire room started laughing. And it was like a palpable shift in the energy of the room. And so even if there's nothing funny to laugh at, sometimes just bursting into laughter will kind of lighten your spirit. And it'll feel different. I mean, think of the last time that you belly laughed, or you laughed so hard you needed to, bend over for a second. You felt physically different.
So I think an important point there is you talked about the laughter being infectious, right? Our temperaments and our attitudes, no matter what they are impacting everybody around us. And, I get really concerned about people that have young children. They have these children at home. They're trying to teach the children. They're trying to work. They have other stressors. And everything we do, these kids are sponges, whether we want them to be or not, right? They're picking up on every aspect, whether it's verbal, whether it's physical, how we're handling ourselves and maintaining ourselves. My son's been through training with us that he calls us out, right? We're blessed that we have that. So it's not a passive aggressive kind of behavior. It's hey, did you know that you're behaving this way right now and it's impacting me this way? And go for a walk or go outside and exercise so that you can shift, because I don't even think you recognize your behavior right now. So, but I don't think most families have that. So if most families don't have that because they're not used to communicating at that level, which I don't think is normal, in our society, I don't think most people do that. So how do they bring that into their household without somebody getting angry or offended that they're calling them out on something because they're already angry?
That's a hard thing to start. For most people, I don't know how you did it, Torey, but for most families to go from a transition of not having that, either having either a passive or aggressive or a passive aggressive response, to go to that assertive style of communication, most people will need a coach. Most people will need somebody to come along, give them some guidance. It's usually not a shift that families can make, because when you're in a family, in a relationship, you're in a dance, right? And if one person changes their dance moves, the other person has to change the dance moves too to keep up with it. So oftentimes that's when a coach or a therapist can come along and provide some guidance. DJ or Tony, your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely second what John's saying there. I think for sustained change is very difficult for people, and communication is something that is very challenging to change. We, like John said, we kind of get set into our ways, into our patterns, into that dance, and it is very difficult to change if the other person isn't willing to do the same. but a really simple tool that people might be able to use in this time, and if we think about it, it makes perfect sense, is when we're talking to other people, especially when it's an emotional conversation or there's a conflict arising, to be really careful to use I statements, right? And when we think about what that means, I statements like the letter I versus you statements. And if we just flip the situation around and we put ourselves in the other person's shoes, it's very obvious, right? To think if someone's coming at us and saying, I felt confused by what you said because I thought, we were going to go this direction and I was confused and I don't understand, or I felt ignored or something like that, versus saying, you always do this to me. You're always, speaking in a way that I can't understand. You're always trying to confuse me. One of those is going to make us feel really defensive. One of those is going to make us feel like now I have to try to defend myself and explain myself and escalate this conflict. Whereas the I statements, if we're owning our own feelings and we're saying, this is how I feel, and I think it's important that you're aware of how I feel because we're all living together and we have a family or we have a relationship, that's going to be a lot more conducive to having a conversation where you can resolve things. And at the end of that, it turns out better. It's improving your relationship instead of being destructive to the relationship.
Good one.
Anybody else have any comments on that? I think that,
Yeah.
we're a blended family, and my son's not my husband's biological child. He's absolutely his father. And he was brought up in a family that you didn't talk. And I was brought up in a family that you didn't talk outside your household, but in your household, everything was just said. So we need to learn filters to some extent because we don't have them. But I think in times like this is when you get really irritated with people, especially if you're spending more time with them than normal, and everybody doesn't know economically what's happening going forward. So how do you shift that? And I'll say with my family, I am health coach certified. I don't share that with a lot of people, but hence why I do know some of these tools. And my son got very sick very young and was in an anxiety clinic for 3 months where they put in your face every day everything you're afraid of. So that's, it was like complete hands-on, in your face. You can't get away from whatever those fears are until you overcame them. So I think I do have tools that the typical person may not have just based on that experience. But how do you shift that anger, that frustration? Because I think we see it all the time in marriage, right? You're in that courting phase and in the dating and everything is lovely and things they do that irritate you, you think are cute, right? Now, it's like, that's not cute. That's disgusting. That's rude. That's whatever. The cuteness went away. So how do you shift from that, oh, it was so cute, to, oh, I want to kill you, back to finding that place of love in your heart that you can find those things cute again?
Well, I think the biggest thing, like, we've said grace earlier today. DJ mentioned I statements. Right now, we're all trapped in the house with each other. It's like, that's the first thing. We have to admit the reality. Like, this is not our normal routine. My normal release is to keep myself calm so that I'm less reactive to the things that might irritate me or bother me are gone, because I have to be here with you people all the time. Like, and that's just the reality, and kind of owning that is really important. One of the things I know that helps me when I get really frustrated is taking a deep breath to prevent me from saying something. Because I'm like you, Torey, I'm going to talk about it. I want to get it out. I want to figure it out. And not in an aggressive manner, but I don't like having things messy. I like to figure it out and get everybody happy. But what I've found that not everybody communicates the same way as I do. So I have to kind of take that breather. And then when someone says, I can't talk right now, it's hard for me to walk away. So it's just recognizing that the other person that you're talking to may not communicate the same way, and just, again, grace and recognizing this is the reality. We are here together. I'm going to get irritated probably more than usual because my normal routine is disrupted, but then also their routine is disrupted. So everybody's in the same boat. And if we just try to think about, how is the other person feeling in this moment as well, that'll help us maybe calm down and be able to find a way to say what we need to say in a manner that they'll be able to receive it. Because ultimately, if they don't listen to you, the conversation is kind of wasted. So we have to make sure that our communication is being done in a way the other person is going to be able to receive it, or we'll be back in the same situation the next day.
So what's a safe way right now? If we're in this, and there's some people that are in 2-bedroom apartments and there's 6 or 8 people living in there right now. What's a safe way to ask somebody what's the best method of communication for them without them, because a lot of people are just be like, wow, you think I do this or that, and they can't even hear. I want to understand what's the best method right now, because we haven't been this close in a long time, isolated in this kind of location. How do you safely get that communication, aside of maybe saying, hey, make a list and I'll read it? I mean, what's a safe way to have that communication without creating somebody to be offensive?
I think DJ, because I think his mention of the I statements, I think, is vitally important. So DJ, maybe you could touch on that and answer that further.
Yeah, I think that learning more about communication styles, and like John had made reference to earlier, trying to become more of an assertive communicator really would be the best way to try to handle that. And I know that most people are stuck at home right now, and maybe there's a feeling that a lot of my clients have had recently that I can't do the things that I enjoy doing. I'm limited. I'm so limited. I'm so restricted. I can't. But as John had mentioned, there are a lot of opportunities for people right now to try and educate themselves, to try to set goals for themselves, to improve the way they communicate if that's something they wanted to do. And of course, we're more than happy to help in a more ongoing basis with that. It's a difficult change, something that does need time and consistency. But I think for right now, the best way to deal with those issues would be to communicate about them, to speak about them. There's a saying that expectations can be premeditated resentments, right? That really just means that if we're not really clear with ourselves about what our expectations are of other people, and we're not clear with them about what our expectations are of them, how can we expect them to meet those expectations, right? That isn't fair to them. And it's really just going to lead to us getting disappointed, getting frustrated, depression, and really some serious relationship issues that come from that. So for people that maybe are feeling that way, like nobody cares about what I need, I'm stuck here with these people, they're driving me crazy, I can't handle it, to really stop and say, okay, what am I expecting from the people I'm around right now? Having some empathy, like Tony said, that everybody's going through a crisis right now. Even if people look on the outside like they're handling it just fine, they are having some reactions, they're having some panics, those things are occurring. They just may not really show it, right? So to have some empathy and to remember that everybody else you're with is going through a crisis too, and maybe to temper your expectations a little bit. Maybe there are some things that they can't do for you right now that they normally do because they're focused on taking care of themselves, or they're dealing with their own crisis right now.
And I think it's drive home. Sorry, go ahead, John.
I was thinking of some old sayings, like there's a biblical saying that says a prophet has no honor in his hometown, or a more modern version of that is an expert is anybody from out of town. And the idea is that when you're close to somebody, sometimes people don't have the same respect. You hear it all the times in couples counseling is, I might say something to somebody and one spouse will say, wow, that makes so much sense. And the other spouse will say, I've been saying that for 10 years. And they might have said the same thing, but just hearing it from somebody else. So the tools, when you're trying to change that communication style, using some external tools can be really helpful, whether that's a coach or a counselor or just some other, a book that you read, an article, rather than you going and saying, hey, I think we should try this, because you may not have the honor in your hometown. You might say, hey, I was reading this book or this article, even though it might just be complete agreement of what you're thinking, it may be better received if it's being received from a third party. That may be a way, if there's already tension to begin with.
No, I think that's very true, and very often that I always say if you want somebody in your family to do something and you think you're going to get resistance, call one of their friends or another family member that they like a lot and ask them to do it. It tends to work.
Yeah. Just one thing I do want to just drive home in terms of what I mentioned, DJ and John as well. The reality of the situation has to be focused on. I know I want to be outside, I want to be free, but we're not. So if we can, get away from wishing that it were some other way, which just adds more stress, we have to recognize this is where we are. It might make it easier to feel empathy towards the other person, to give grace to the other person as well as ourselves. If we just recognize this is where we are, we have to move through it and manage it as best we can.
So can you guys talk a little bit about some of the things that you're encountering more now since the COVID isolation that maybe we haven't talked about today? that maybe somebody might be experiencing that I wouldn't even know to ask about, so that they know that they can come to you and that you're there as a resource?
John?
Oh, yeah, so I think in general, I wish you could do, we can do brain scans, we can do brain mapping like of individuals, and you can see, neurotransmitters. I almost wish we could do like a brain scan of the world. And I think what you'd find is the dopamine levels of the world and the serotonin levels of the world are going down. These are the feel-good neurotransmitters. There's just a general sense of flatness. And I think a little like underlying low-level depression that a lot of people are experiencing, and that'll manifest in a lot of different ways. It could come out in just thoughts of lack of energy, lack of motivation, guilt, things, or it can come out in the anger and focus on other people. It can come out, it'll manifest itself physically, and then also the anxiety. With so much unknown, the core addiction of mankind is the addiction to control. All of their addictions stem from that. And right now there is so much the reality is we're not in control to begin with, but we have the illusion of control. When we can go to work, when we have our schedule, we think we're in control and it feels better. But now that illusion has been blown up, and we're all aware of the fact that we're not in control. And that's creating an exasperating underlying anxiety. So a lot of people need some coaching around either ways to build those neurochemicals and taking steps to get out of the depression, or keeping their anxiety in check. And then I think the relational stuff, which we've been talking about a lot of, because people are confined with each other, there is more relational conflict. I know Jason brought up some good things in the chat, some comments in here, really building on some of the stuff that DJ mentioned around the I statements, and talking about when you're in communication, doing those things like asking, hey, how can I be a better person? Or what have I changed? Rather than you talk about the things. So there's some good points there in his comments.
Well, John, with what you said, you talked about dopamine and serotonin, and I know a lot of physicians don't even check for that when you get blood tested. But one thing we didn't talk about today is the different foods we eat and our nutrition, and how that nutrition impacts our physical being, whether we're feeding the cells in our body or not feeding the cells in our body. Do you want to touch upon that real quick?
Yeah, I'll start, and then Koven can probably jump in and fill in some gaps as well. I think in general, I use the analogy all the time when we're trying to build these neurochemicals like serotonin and GABA, the kind of the anti-anxiety neurotransmitter. It's like making a cake. In order to make a cake, you need flour, you need sugar, you need the ingredients. And the ingredients for your body to build these neurochemicals are all the phytonutrients that are found in fruits and vegetables. That's like the flour of the cake. And then certain amino acids, that's like the sugar of the cake. And if you give your body all the right ingredients, you're giving your body the best opportunity to produce and make these nutrients. So a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. The more you can get, the better. There's no bad fruit or vegetable. They're all good. Just the more variety that we get. I mentioned previously, I'm not a big fan of most supplements. I do recommend Juice Plus. It's regulated. It's not a supplement. It's actually regulated by the FDA as a food concentrate. It's just fruits and vegetables that have been picked, vine ripened, then juiced and dehydrated and put into a capsule or a soft chew. So it looks like a vitamin, but it's actually regulated. It's been researched by the National Institutes of Health, and it's been actually funded by the National Institutes of Health, some of the research on it. So that's a way to get all the flour, so to speak. And then the amino acids, that's some like the L-tryptophan and L-theanine and L-tyrosine. It's comes in like poultry and cage-free eggs and nuts and organic, like clean soy products. One of the things that I use is a shake called Complete, and it's made with a lot of those ingredients that have a lot of those amino acids. So when I get all my fruits and vegetables, and I take my Juice Plus, and I drink a Complete shake, and I eat some cage-free eggs and some natural poultry, I'm getting all those ingredients for my body to make that cake. So that's one of the ways. Obviously, exercise helps too. Koven, what are your additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. absolutely affirm everything that you just said, John. And I think the only other additional nutrition thing that I've been noticing is going on a lot are, and I mentioned it earlier, we are gravitating more towards carbs and sweets now. We already have a carb-centric diet as the standard American diet, and we already, as a culture, have a very high, we seek a lot of sugar. So there's a sugar addiction in our culture. And so to add on that, when we're stressed and our body's releasing cortisol into our system, it forces us to want those sweets even more. And so, right now we need to have a lot of grace for ourselves, and that includes at some level some of the emotional eating we might be doing. But if we are able to be, like John said, nutritionally sound and get the nutrients that we need, our body will crave those unhealthy foods a lot less. So the more people can be stocking their fridge and things like this, sorry, there's a bunch of feedback right now, so I got distracted. So the more we can be feeding ourselves with, vegetables and fruits, like John was saying, the less we'll be craving things. And so specifically, if we have sufficient levels of magnesium and calcium, our bodies aren't going to crave those sweets as much. Okay. And the more we crave those sweets, it's like a quick fix. Okay. So, we'll have that boost of energy. We'll feel really great for a little bit. And then once we start to have that crash, we're going to want more of it. And so, as much as people can gravitate more towards fruit-based sweets. So, instead of,
Christmas cake
or things like that, if we gravitate more towards fruits or even honeys or natural kind of sweet alternatives, that would be of course best. That's the only thing I would add on to it, John.
I think one of the things I tell people is, my personality is, if you tell me I can't do something or I can't have something, then I want to do it and I want to have it. So back in the day when I would think about a diet, I would want to eat everything because in my mind I was on a diet. So I just tell people, you know what, if you're going to eat the junk and you're craving it right now, create a rule for yourself. You're required to have a bowl of broccoli or a salad or drink so many ounces of water. And if you're going to eat those sweets and eat those chips, that's fine. But you have to create the schedule for yourself of what you do need to do, so you're not beating yourself up for what's not necessarily healthy for you. So, I know a lot of people that are overweight and they come to me, they're like, I'm trying to eat better. I'm like, forget about eating better. Why don't you just add these 3 things? Because subconsciously, I think you start focusing on what you're doing good rather than focusing on what you're not doing. And I think we live in a world of we're bad or we're doing something wrong, or it's always this takeaway as opposed to, okay, let's implement the good things. And I like how, Coven, you talked about hugging yourself and, doing these things that are helping us create good habits rather than focusing on necessarily maybe our bad habits, right? We all have them. We're all human. None of us are perfect, although we strive to be, right? Everybody wants to be perfect in some respect or another, but the reality is we're human. And being human, that's not possible. So, John, if somebody wanted to buy Juice Plus, I believe you guys sell that, but if they decided, okay, I know I'm going to crave these sweets because I'm stressed, but now I'm going to make myself take so many of these nutritional supplements, whether it's a shake, a vitamin, whatever, but know that your solid vitamin pills, 60% of them get eaten up with acid in your stomach, so you don't absorb them in your intestines anyway. So whatever you get, make sure that you can actually absorb it. But I think it's important to focus on the good, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jump in really quick here, just a second. I have a client scheduled in a few minutes, so I'm going to have to take off. But it was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody. And look forward to next time.
Thanks, TJ.
Thanks, TJ.
Bye.
So any other?
Tony, you're on mute. I think you're talking, but you're on mute. Tony, you're on mute. I think you were trying to talk.
Yeah.
I just muted you,
Yeah,
Tony.
well, she's controlling that. So yeah, I just wanted to say, I just kind of packing on as well what John said, kind of what Coven said, and then Torey, you kind of mentioned, that's our whole philosophy. We're always add more. It's not take away, because your diet isn't a thing that you do, it's what you eat. And the more we can realize that, I think the easier we'll be on ourselves with the grace. A couple points is that if you are going to emotional eat, like Coven mentioned, I think recognizing I'm emotionally eating, again, that intentional awareness, and not to go to the shame of it, because that just keeps the cycle building and increases it. It's just, I'm emotional eating. What am I eating? I'm eating chips. So let me make sure I add some broccoli. Like, I think that was a really good point, to have a balance for it. So instead of going to, I'm emotional eating and shaming myself, I could say, oh, I'm eating emotionally, I'm eating some chips, and I had an agreement with myself that if I ate a bag of chips, I had to have a bowl of broccoli or whatever. And that could be a good transition point. So that was really clear. But it was nice that you mentioned our whole philosophy with, we do nutrition, which John and Coven do, and I do some health coaching here. We don't tell people not to eat this. I mean, we obviously want to direct them away from things that are harmful, but our main focus is adding to what they can eat to their diet. So as you said, they're focusing on that. The other stuff will wane off and will fall off if they focus on the good stuff.
Right. And I think that was a great point, because when your body gets nutritionally sound, you have less cravings, right? So I think that's why it's so important that we focus on, what do we add? Let's add, because we're so used to saying take away, right? If a kid does something, you can't have this, you're going to do whatever, right? Let's start giving. I think the more we give, you know, and we're talking about the heart, right? It's the love ourselves, love others. It's okay, but add stuff, and add the positive stuff from either the talking emotional to the food, whatever it is, rather than, I think we're humanly like to beat ourselves up for whatever reason, I don't know, but maybe our brains are just wired that way. You guys have any other closing statements? And before we hang up this call today, I would like maybe Coven to kind of walk us all through, and we'll actually do some of these exercises to share with other people that maybe want to join along, that they can physically see us do the exercises and walk us through those. I think that might be a little fun.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty fun. Before we do, my only other additional comment with food, in regards to food, is, you know, if we can, you know, so many people have a negative view of food. You know, a lot of people have different eating, even if it's just even if it's a bad eating habit, the mental side of it, how they're relating to food, is often equally as unhealthy as what they're actually eating. And so I think if we could use, you know, this time to reframe how we view food, and think about it more creatively, more from a fun perspective of, you know, this week I'm going to try a new vegetable, or I'm going to try a new cooking technique, or I'm going to look up this recipe that this restaurant that I love has, and I can't go to that restaurant right now, so I'm going to try and recreate it myself, you know, and just kind of have more of an opportunity to take that time and take care of yourself. You know, when we prepare food for ourselves, there is something unique about that process of, I'm making something for myself that is going to nutritionally supply what I need. It's going to emotionally supply something delicious and wonderful, and just kind of offer a little bit of that and engage the different senses. You know, you have taste and smell and sight. If you like to, you know, make your dish really Instagram perfect, you can kind of engage a lot of different levels of yourself. And of course, we know creativity engages parts of our mind that are just really fun and provide a lot of joy for us.
So John, did you want to share? Thanks, Kevin. That was really good. John, did you want to, the mental health part, that was really great. The mind part, that was a great connection. And John, I think Torey had asked about Juice Plus. So I don't know if you wanted, people could just call our office at this number or contact us, but John, do you have any more about that?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. Just call the office. We're happy to direct them to a website where they can learn more information. It's the most researched nutritional product in history. There's more clinical published studies on Juice Plus than any other nutritional product in the world. It's 100% bioavailable, just as if you were eating the fruits and vegetables, like Torey mentioned. It's so important because most vitamins and supplements, don't actually get into your bloodstream, but there's been numerous clinical published studies. There's over 45 published clinical studies. These are all double-blind, placebo-controlled, you know, fully, and you can go to PubMed and read all the clinical research on Juice Plus. That's been around for over 25 years, and kids can get it for free. Any kids between the ages of 4 and 18, and full-time college students can get Juice Plus for free for up to 4 years with an adult sponsor. So if they call our office, we'll be happy to tell them about that. There's over 1 million kids around the world getting it for free.
Yeah, and I think that we need to make sure that everybody understands it's okay to be having all these feelings, these emotional feelings, the anger, the frustration, the anxiety. And if you don't have a healthcare professional that you're currently working with, Total Health Guidance is providing consultations. You can call them at the phone number here where Tony's pointing. But you know, the whole goal of this is to have that outreach to our community. Share this video with anybody that you know that is struggling, and even people that aren't struggling, that are just looking for somebody that they want to talk to. So we catch them before they are struggling, because we're all going through a lot of emotions right now. It's normal. I mean, it's just, this is what we should expect, and it's okay. And I think, you know, Jason made a really good point, is there's no shame in it. You know what? This is real life, and this is, it's an anomaly. This probably is something that we may never see in our lifetime. I know people older than me that have never seen this in their lifetime. You know, have grace for yourself, and COVID, let's do something fun.
Yeah, let's do some fun. So first one we'll do is the just hugging yourself. So, you know, stretch your arms out, move your shoulders a little bit, wiggle around, you know, have a quick dance party. Okay, and then extend your arms outwards, and then try and grab as much of your body, including your back, as possible. And then with each of these holds, you want to just pause for a second. Maybe close your eyes, take a deep breath, inhale, and then exhale. And if you're doing this for yourself at home, if you want to do maybe 10 of these breaths, just focus on what your shoulders are doing, how your shoulders move up when you inhale, and how you feel your chest getting smaller when you exhale. Okay, inhale and exhale. There's something so beautiful about this. It's so simple, but so wonderful. So another one is holding your arms, you know, so shoulders up here, feel for the bottom right here, and just, it's kind of like a different form of a hug, but compress your hands and hold this muscle tightly. There's actually a acupuncture point right here, right where your hands are, that's really good for soothing the body. And it's really a great spot to kind of apply some pressure to and massage, because it'll engage that. And so again, you can inhale, and as you inhale, kind of squeeze your arms a little bit. And then when you exhale, go ahead and release that pressure and kind of bring your shoulders down. So inhale, and then exhale, release those hands a little bit. Another simple one is just kind of holding your hands, and not, you know, of course celebrate, but really holding your hands. And really what we're doing, we're actually pressing a little acupressure point here. It's right in the middle of your hand, right where my finger is pressing. And you can just kind of compress. And again, inhale and squeeze really tightly, massage that acupressure point, and then exhale, you can release it. And then inhale and make sure you do the other side. So you make sure you're pressing the other side. Inhale, and then exhale. Another really simple one is to place one hand at the base of your head in the back, right at the occiput, okay? And then your other hand you can place on your forehead, okay? And if you feel the need to kind of like compress your arms in, that's okay. If not, that's okay too. And just apply some pressure. Again, apply pressure on the inhale, and then just release a little bit on the exhale. And so if you're like me and you have a lot of hair, make sure your hand's getting behind your hair, so you're actually touching more of your skin. You know, engaging the skin receptors are a huge part of this. So as much as possible, make sure you're touching skin, and just apply pressure there. Another one we can do, another acupressure point at the vertex of your head, which is just the top of your head where my hands are tapping right now. There's another really fantastic acupressure point. Okay, so you can kind of press right in there. You can take your thumbs and you can press on your temples, the temples of the head. Okay, and those are two really fantastic acupressure points that are really good at calming the mind down. Okay, and so you can kind of just apply some massage or just hold yourself there and inhale and then exhale. And I'll end with one more. And the last one is just placing your hand in the middle of your chest. Okay, both hands. And this is just, it's kind of we don't often just kind of touch our hearts very much, but there's something really beautiful about when we do. And so just kind of holding your heart, you can inhale and exhale. And I would encourage people, if you're doing this, at home, when you have more time to think about it, use it as an opportunity to meditate or think about something that's emotionally going on. Think about the fear or the grief or the anger or frustration, whatever emotion that comes up when you hold your body like this. I would encourage you to sit there and process it a little bit, do some deep breathing. And then when you feel some relief from that, then I would kind of move out of this space. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, Coben. It was
Anybody-
Thanks, Coben. I know we can probably go back and watch this video without sound, and that'll really help with the laughter part of it.
awesome.
But you know what? We even feel a little uncomfortable, and you guys do this all the time. So I think it's amazing that, and thank you for participating and sharing that, because I think we can talk about things, but if we don't actually show people how to do it, they may not clearly understand. So maybe next week we can do a little bit more of that. I think it makes it a little more fun too. Anything in closing statements aside of, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking your time out of your day, right? You take your time out of your day to reach out to our community and share some tips. We can all use it right now. And the fact that you guys come from a positive place and let's give and let's provide, and what can you add to your life and not take away from your life is really, really important. Not just today, but in all times of life. Do you have anything in closing you want to say?
Well, I just want to say thank you, because again, we're involved in this because you mentioned it to John, and I think that's it. This is a great opportunity to connect, one, with my team, but I'm getting to know you as well, people on Facebook. This is really exciting that you're getting people in the community together in this really crazy time. So I commend you for making the effort to just connect people just to talk and learn. That's really amazing and awesome. So thanks for letting us in on it and including us. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Torey.
All right, guys, have a fantastic week. Thank you so
All right.
much. And Coben,
Bye.
thank you for the experience.
All right.